This is much better.
Okay, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen, it's recording. Yes. So this is a big deal. This is Shabbos, the first Shabbos of Kislev. Tonight is Erev is Erev Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is Friday. So Rosh Chodesh is Friday, and so today is Yom Kippur Katan. We call it the small Yom Kippur that we do before every new month. So we're very excited because the Rebbe always says that the energy of the month starts from the Shabbos Mevarchim, from the Shabbos we bless the month. And this week, because Rosh Chodesh falls out on Friday, so it turns out that the whole week we're connected. The whole week of Cheshvan is really connected to Kislev because we already started the energy of Kislev when we blessed the new month of Kislev on Shabbos. So the whole week it's a long week of Cheshvan. It's almost a quarter of, it's definitely 1/5 of Cheshvan is in this week, but it's already connected to Kislev. And Kislev, we know what's so special about Kislev is the month of miracles. We're starting off with the miracle of Yitas Kislev, which is the Chag HaGeula, which is the Rosh Hashanah for Chassidus. There's Hanukkah at the end, the Rebbe's anniversary, Yudalit Kislev, the liberation and the birthday and Yartzeit of the Holy Mittel Rebbe. And so many things. The month of Kislev is saturated with Chassidic Yom Tovs. It's a Chassidish Chodesh, the Chassidish month, and it's a month of Geula. So really one of the most powerful months of the year is the month of Kislev. I'm not sure if it was the last year or one of the last years, the Rebbe was so excited about Kislev that the Rebbe instructed his Chassidim to bring every night of Kislev, to have a hitvadut, to have a gathering every night. Doesn't mean you have to be up to 4 a.m, but every night there should be hitvadut of simcha and encouragement and the mamish, the achdus. So it's a big deal that we're in the month of Kislev and we're already drawing energy since Shabbos and Volchem. And on top of that, we're mamish erev Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So we start off our little farbringen here tonight with L'chaim. L'chaim, everyone, a good Chodesh, and a Hatzlacha Chodesh, and a Chodesh of Geula, and for Geula Pratis, our own individual redemption that we all need in everything in our life, both Begashmis and Beruchnis, our spiritual redemption and material redemption. And also the main thing is that to come the Geula Amitis Vashlema, we should go into Chanukah, we should go into the month of Kislev already with Mashiach, L'chaim. The Rebbe would quote the Zohar. The Rebbe would quote the Holy Zohar more than once that says that from the 25th of the month of Elul, it says that the Zohar says that in the 25th month of Elul, a star shoots out from Derech Koch of Miyakov. A star shoots out, and after 70 days, Mashiach is going to come. So the Rebbe quotes this. The Rebbe quotes this, and that's one of the things about the 25th of the month of Elul. Aside from that being the day of creation, and like the Holy Ran would quote that in Barcelona, Spain, the Jewish people would wake up early on the 25th of Elul because it's the day of creation. It means although that we celebrate Rosh Hashanah on the first day of Tishrei, that's because that's when man was created. Adam and Eve were created on the 6th day. But creation, the first day of creation, that Bereshis Bar Elikim happened on the 25th of Elul. So though it's not the Rosh Hashanah, but in Barcelona, they would wake up early to kind of usher in the energy of the first day of creation. But also, the Rebbe would quote the Zohar, that Mashiach is 70 days from the 25th day of Elul. So my math isn't perfect, but if we go 25 days from the month of Elul to the 25th day, incidentally, the 25th day of Tishrei is Rivkah, is right after Sukkot. Sukkot's over in Chutz La'aretz on the 24th, and in Eretz Yisrael it's over on the 23rd of Tishrei, and then the 25th of Mar Cheshvan, which we passed already, makes it 60 days. So roughly around, depending, this year we only have 29 days of Cheshvan, but roughly about the 5th or the 6th of the month of Kislev is 70 days. So if Rosh Chodesh is going to be the first of Kislev, is going to be on Friday, and the 2nd of Kislev is going to be on Shabbos, which means that definitely the 5th or the 6th, whatever the 70 days counts this year, is going to be next week. Next week, we're going to be 70 days from 25th of El. So there's a specific energy for Mashiach this week, that because the Zohar quotes 70 days. So it should be Taka, that doesn't have to be at the end of the 70 days, but it should be that by the 70th day, we should be in Mashiach. The Rebbe always would say that when we say the Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim next year in Jerusalem, and that's been a cry and a prayer for the Jewish people for all times. Everyone says L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. We say it a few times a year. We say it Passover after the Passover Seder. We say it Yom Kippur after the Tefillah. Is that you don't have to be that next year Pesach you come to Yerushalayim. By next year Pesach you should be in Yerushalayim, settled, Mashiach already here. And we have this week's also is connected to Pesach, which is the holiday of Cherus. We'll talk about it in a second. Yitzchak is all about Pesach, right? Yitzchak was born on Pesach. Yitzchak was told that he was going to be born on Pesach. And Yitzchak was, I believe the Kedah was on Pesach, if I'm not, or Rosh Hashanah. That I'm mistaken, I have to check. But also this week, when did Yitzchak want to bless Yaakov? It was on Pesach. It was on Pesach night. It was when Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, and then he blessed Yaakov. Why? Because on his birthday, when he turned 123 years old, Rashi quotes that Yitzchak wasn't. He says, "I'm about to die." So we're jumping ahead in the Parsha. We're going to go back from the beginning in a second. But we're talking already about Pesach. We're talking about Cherus and redemption. We're talking about the Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. So we just quote that Yitzchak calls in his son Esav and says that I'm getting closer to my end of days, and I want to bless you. But actually, Yitzchak doesn't die for many years. Yitzchak lives the entire life of Yaakov in Yitzchak's brother-in-law's house, Lavan. So that's 22 years that Yaakov is away. And he's alive even when Joseph is sold. It says clearly, Yitzchak is alive. Yitzchak lived the longest of the fathers, I think 180 years. So why is Yitzchak concerned that he's going to die? He doesn't die for many years after that. So much happens in between when Yitzchak blesses Yaakov, at the end, Yaakov, and he was concerned of his death. And the reason is that Rashi says that a person is supposed to be concerned with their death within 5 years of one of their parents passing. So there's an idea that a person has to get concerned about, maybe it's their time, if it's around the time when their parents passed away. So if unfortunately your parents passed away, let's say early, God forbid. So there's a certain, around that time you get a little bit nervous, so to say. Rashi says maybe you're going to go at the same time as one of those parents, or maybe you'll outlive them, but you're supposed to be kind of conscious of that age. So Yaakov, when Yitzchak turns 123, how old was Yitzchak's mother when she passed away? Sarah, 127. We learned that last week. So Yitzchak's mother is 127 years old. So when he turned 123, 5 years which 5 years is within the space of his mother's age, he started to be concerned. Maybe he's going to die. Although he lived many years after that. He lived 5 years after his father died. He lived 180. His father died 175. But he started to get concerned when he was within 5 years of his mother. When does he get concerned? On his birthday. On his birthday, he turns 123 years old. He says, maybe I'm going to live within 5 years. I'm going to pass away now, or within 5 years of my mother's passing, 127. And that's why Rivkah makes for him the 2 goats. Rashi says Yitzchak was a healthy eater, but 2 goats is a lot of food. He needs 2 goats. I mean, how much meat does a man have to eat? So Rashi says no, he wasn't chas v'shalom. Yitzchak was an edel person. Yitzchak didn't stuff himself. He didn't need the 2 goats. But one was for the Korban Pesach, because it was Pesach. So we know this week's Parsha is connected to Pesach. I want to talk about a few things. This is a very small packed Parsha. It's basically what we know about the life of Rivkah and Yitzchak, 2 very, very, very powerful people. I mean, we learn about the mothers a lot in the Torah. We learn about the fathers and we learn about the mothers. Sarah. But if we want to know from the text, about Sarah's life, so we don't find really Sarah so much how she's involved in what Avram's doing. Although the Torah says that we have the Midrash and the talk that Sarah definitely was out doing with Avram hand in hand the work. It says Sarah was Megayer the Nashim. She worked on the women and Avram worked on the men, and they had thousands of people. Now, Sarah surely was very involved in the work, but the Torah doesn't tell us about it. The Torah tells us a few things about Sarah. What we know about Sarah is her travels with Avram, and we know about Sarah was also we have the interaction with the angels when they say that Sarah's going to give birth. And Yaakov and Avram calls Sarah to help prepare the food, and she laughs, and she says she didn't laugh. And then we also find her protection of her son Yitzchak, very protective of Yitzchak, and very cautious. Let's call it of Hagar, very cautious of Hagar, who she first gives Avram as a wife, but she's not going to. She's not going to let anything in that relationship between Hagar and Avram get in the way of her relationship, and also surely not going to allow for Hagar's child Ishmael to get in any kind of way of Yitzchak's rights and Yitzchak's well-being. So anything that she feels is that Yitzchak is threatened by Ishmael, which is still happening today. So we're sure today that when Ishmael's descendants are threatening the Jewish people. So we know surely that Sarah is very protective of Yitzchak. So she's surely very protective of us. It's known. I went with Rebbitzin Farkash, Rabbi Farkash from Bellevue's mother. Once Rabbi Farkash came to town many years ago for his son Moishe's bar mitzvah, and we said we're going to go to Hebron. So he asked if his mother could join us. I drove him to Hebron. It was on his son Moishe's bar mitzvah. So we go to Hebron. So Mrs. Farkash told me, and she's from what we call Old Jerusalem, Old Israel, the authentic Israel, authentic Eretz Yisrael. Her parents, her father and her mother and her grandfather of Avram Bloy, their family was in Eretz Yisrael way before whoever we call today the ruling parties of Eretz Yisrael. So she has deep traditions about Eretz Yisrael. And one of her traditions is that where do you daven? By Moras HaMachpelah, by Sarah. If you want to know where is the spot to stand and pray, at the cave of the pay. Anyone who's been to Mars HaMachpelah is a compound, right? You walk in, there's that big building built by Herod, and you walk in, and Asap's head is on this side, and Yaakov and Leah over here, and maybe in the corner it says maybe Adam and Eve are buried over there. Yitzchak and Rivkah have the huge hall that's usually closed to Jews, all the way in the corner on the right. So if you're standing when you come in, it's all the way in the corner of the right. And there's when you walk in on the entry, there's the smallest place of Avram and Sarah. Sarah is the first one. When you walk in after you pass Esav, it's a big compound, right? So there's many places to daven by Moras HaMachpelah. So she says the tradition is that you stand inside by Sarah, and that's where you daven. That's the entrance of the cave. It makes sense because she's the first to be buried there of our fathers and mothers. But so when you go to Moras HaMachpelah, you have to know that Sarah is davening till today for us. She davens protection of anything that's happening now in the world. She's conscious and protecting. She's very protective of Yitzchak. And when Yishmael is threatening Yitzchak, she tells Avram, throw him out. You got to get rid of him. And Avram is not feeling great about that. It's his son. And God comes and reveals himself to Avram and says, listen to Sarah. Whatever Sarah tells you, you have to do. The Rashi tells us that Sarah was a greater prophetess than Avram. She knew better. Avram was being compassionate for Yishmael. Sarah says, no one's going to hurt Yitzchak. So she's very protective. So that's really what we know in the text about Sarah. But about Rivkah, although Rivkah also, what we know about Rivkah is also with regard to her protection of Yaakov, making sure Yaakov gets the blessings. But there's something about Rivkah from the beginning when we meet her, last week's Parsha, when the way she comes out and she has that understanding of being a hostess, right? What was the test that Eliezer gave about Rivkah? Was that if he's going to ask her for water, will she also give water to the camels? That's the test. That was his test. It means not just that she would give him water, but if she offers waters on her own to the camels, then he understands that she has the qualities to be a daughter-in-law in Avram and Sarah's house and to be the wife of Yitzchak. And she stands up to the test, flying. What do they say? What's the expression? It's flying colors. She's there. She's focused. She's alone, right? They say Rivkah is like a rose in a thorn bush, where there's thorns all around the rose. So Shoshana ben Akachachim, that the rose among the thorns is Rivkah, because she grows up with a horrible father and brother, right? Lavan and Besuel, and the mother doesn't seem to be much better. And she's a righteous woman on her own, without any, but she didn't have a background. But she's super focused. She knows, as a young girl, she knows what has to be done. So we find a certain very underlining strong character in Rivkah. Although Sarah has it also, the focus she has for Yitzchak, but there's something about Rivkah that's very clear. It's a certain very clear. I mean, Rivkah had to choose between her own children. Right? Sarah was choosing her child over someone else's child. And Avram couldn't make that choice. Avram said, they're both my children. And so God says to Avram, Kach nas bincha. He says, take your son. He says, which son? I have two sons. So he says, Asher Ahavta, the one you love, because I love them both. I love Yitzchak and I love Yishmael. Then God has to say, yes, Yitzchak. Because Avram has two sons, he loves them both. And when Sarah says you have to throw one son out, he doesn't feel good about it. Rivkah has to make a choice within her own children. She has two sons, twins, Esav and Yaakov, and she has to know that Yaakov, she does everything. She puts herself at risk, personal risk. She says in the Torah clearly, the Torah says that she says, "Alai kilach b'ni." Right? What's the pronunciation of the word? She says when Yaakov says that my father's going to curse me if he sees that I fooled him. He says, it's on me. The curse is on me. Later we find that when Reuven says that my children will be a guarantee for Binyamin, Yaakov says, your children are my children. So if there's a curse on Rivkah, who's the curse on Rivkah? Rivkah was ready to take a curse, even if it's going to be whatever the consequences was, even though it would protect Yaakov. And she makes a choice of one child over the next. And she also she has to so to say misuse the trust her son Esav had in her. Right? It says, why was the clothing of Esav in Rivkah's house? Esav had his own house. Rashi says Esav had his house, he had wives. Why does Esav keep his clothing by his mother's house? Why can't he hang it up in his own house? He has his own bedroom with his own closet. Hang up your coat in your own house. Imagine every time you get clothing, you have to go to your mother's house. That's not great for Shalom Bayis, right? His family peace is every time he keeps his valuables by his mother. But he didn't trust his wives. Rashi says he knew his wives, he didn't trust them. He married bad blood, and he knew it. And therefore didn't trust his wives, and he gave it to his mother. And what does his mother do? That trust, she goes and she gives the clothing to Yaakov to wear when she goes, and she does, because she's so clear that this has to be done. There's no question in her mind. She has no doubt, no suffix. There's something very strong about Rivkah. So the Parsha, in this week's Parsha, we start, what's the beginning? The beginning is, again, when Rivkah becomes pregnant. First, she has a hard time becoming pregnant. She becomes pregnant. And, it says, Rashi says that she davened, then Yitzchak davened, and God answers Yitzchak. But Rivkah, she needs to know what's going on. She feels confusion in her stomach. She says this child is all over the place. And again, she's very clear. She's like, we don't find that she had a conversation with Yitzchak. Possibly she did, possibly she didn't. If she had a conversation with Yitzchak, she wasn't satisfied with the conversation, because she goes elsewhere. She goes to her grandfather's shame, to the yeshiva, and says, I need to know what's going on. She needs certainty, because Rivkah has to be clear. That's who her personality is. She's clear. And if she sees confusion in one of her children, she doesn't mess around. She goes into the base medrash and she speaks to Shem and says, what's going on? What kind of child am I bringing into this world? That when we walk into Hedab Shem, we walk into we walk by the yeshiva, he wants to go to learn. When we walk by the house of the Skachavim, he wants to go to the house of, he's confused. He's all over the place. And so she says, yes, there's an issue there. You have two children, you have two people inside you. And she says one's going to go to the yeshiva and one's going to go to the house of the Avodah Zarah. And she knows it, and she doesn't. We don't find that she. It's interesting. Something very, very interesting. That when she has this confusion in her stomach, she says something very sharp. She says, "If this is what I'm bringing into the world, something so confused, something so unbalanced, so what's the point? Why did I ask for a child?" She says it's a very strong lashon. She says like this. She says when she goes before she goes to shame. It says that she says, the children were making a balagan in their stomach. What do I need this for? She says, this is why we daven for children to have a confused child. So the shame says, no, there's two children, there's two things happening. And what's interesting is she doesn't say again the same statement. Lama zeh Anochi afterwards. In theory, he doesn't give her good news. He says one child is going to be going to the base of Avodas Kachavim. She doesn't say afterwards, what's the purpose of my bringing birth? Because now she has clarity. Until then, she didn't understand. Now she understands. Rivkah is very clear, and she has clarity how to deal with the situation. And then comes out, and the Chassidus explains that when Shem says to Rivkah that there's always going to be a battle. It's not just a battle of Esav and Yaakov. The Ematz really is the battle within the person. In theory, what's the basis of Tanya? The basis of Tanya that we're celebrating this month of Yutas Kislev. What is the Tanya starting off to teach us? The Tanya is coming to ask Rivkah's question. Lama zeh Anochi. Tanya starts off in chapter 1 and chapter 2, saying, "What is this Beinoni? Who is a person? Who are we? Lama zeh Anochi. What's this going on? We have so many things going on inside of us. We have inconsistencies going on inside of us. Not everything's, the math doesn't make sense. We have moments of emes, of truth. We have moments of mamish. We're feeling kedusha, holiness. We're feeling purpose. We want to daven. We want to put on tefillin. We want to do a mitzvah in its finest, highest level. And we have other things that were pulled to other places, right? We're like that stomach of Rivkah. And Rivkah says, Lama zeh Anochi. And that's the question Tanya says. Lama zeh Anochi. What kind of people? Who are we? And Tanya says the answer of shame. It's just like Shem says, it's not a contradiction. You don't have a single person who's confused. There's two things going on inside of you. You have Esav and Yaakov. And the Alter Rebbe says the same thing. There's two souls inside of you. You have a nefesh halikis and a nefesh habahamis. You have a godly soul and you have an animalistic soul. And you're going to spend your entire life battling between your animal soul and your godly soul. Like they battled in Rivkah's stomach. And just like Rivkah, after she hears that, she doesn't say, Lama zeh Anochi. She doesn't say, what's the purpose of living? She's clear now. This is the mission. The mission is that we have emes in us. It's not that it's fake. We have, like the Alter Rebbe says, it's svas emes. It may not be the emes of a tzaddik, but it's the language of emes. Yet we have moments of mamish truth that comes through the godly soul in us, and we have another side of us, the animal in us, that's pulling us to do things like an animal wants to do, not thinking of consequences, not godly things, feelings of jealousy, feelings of desire for kavod, other things that we're pulled to, and that's the battle of life. And Rivkah walks out and says, "Okay, kacha." That's what Tanya comes to say. Tanya answers is that know that you have two things inside of you. You have two souls in you, and they're battling, and that battle is going to go on for life until the day of the job. You have a job to win every battle. Every time Esav comes to you, every time the nefesh of Bahamas, the animal, comes to you, and you not just that you have to win every battle, you have to transform that energy. Maybe not on the level of a tzaddik to make that you are totally righteous. Don't ever get that level of overconfident, but to use the energy of the animal also for positive. That's the idea, and this is really the whole parsha. Because there's something very interesting about this Parsha that's very pivotal. This Parsha is the bridge between the life of Avraham and the life of Yaakov. This is the Parsha that really connects the story of Avram with Yaakov. Avram is, and they're going in two opposite directions. Avram is coming to the land. And how do we finish off this week's Parsha? Yaakov's leaving the land. And Yitzchak is the one who has to stay in the land. Right? So we have Avram that comes to the land, Yaakov who leaves the land, and Yitzchak who God says in this week's Parsha, you can't leave the land. You have to always be in Eretz Yisrael. So the idea of coming into Eretz Yisrael, moving into Eretz Yisrael, elevating into Eretz Yisrael, the idea of Lech Lecha. The simple explanation, leaving from your negative to positive, to the land of Eretz Canaan. And then you have Yaakov, who leaves Eretz Canaan, Be'er Sheva, the well of seven, and he goes to Haran, goes back to the anger of the world. He basically goes back to the same place Avram left. But where Avram is leaving Haran to elevate Eretz Yisrael, Yaakov, Sibas HaSibas, God made it so that he's going back to Haran. He's going back to the angry place of the world. He's facing his anger, facing the world's anger, to fix it. And in order to be able to, how could you go, what's going on? It means we're going in a circle here. Avram is leaving Haran, Yaakov's going back to Haran. If you're leaving, why did you go back? And if you're going back, why did you leave? Right? So the only way, the connection is Yitzchak. It's Yitzchak and Rivkah's, this moment of defining Lama zeh Anochi. What's the purpose? What's my purpose in this world? And the knowledge of it. Again, Rivkah didn't fix the problem. But knowing the problem, then you know how to deal with it. Understanding the situation, the clarity, that's a Rivkah, again, is the one who's very clear. Rashi says in last week's Parsha that when Eliezer says it's time to go back with Yitzchak, with Eliezer to meet Yitzchak, she says, I'm not asking. I'm going to go with your permission, without your permission. Rivkah knows always what she has to do. There's never a doubt in Rivkah's mind. She's never struggling. If she's struggling, she has to figure it out immediately. She doesn't understand her children in her stomach. Either she has a conversation with Yitzchak, we don't know that, but we know clear that whatever it was, she needed an answer, and she goes to Shem, and Shem gives an answer, and she's calm. It's that balance, it's that understanding, it's that knowledge that we know that we're not perfect, that we have Esav inside us, but we know it, but we understand it now. We understand this is our mission. Then we could go back and face. Yaakov goes back to face Haran. He goes back to the same place. It means when you're leaving something away, you don't have the strength to face it. Yaakov has the strength to go back to where he started from, where the Jewish people started from, because he has the knowledge. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. He knows there's the Esav, and he knows that there's the Yaakov. And when he comes back from from Haran, he's so sure that he completed it that he tells Esav, Maybe we're talking already. Maybe it's Mashiach's times. Maybe we did the full job. And the angels say, no, there's still work to be done. But this is the story. And the person who makes it all happen is Rivkah. She's the one who has the understanding of who Esav and Yaakov is. Yitzchak, we don't find that Yitzchak had any questions. He didn't go to shame. He saw value in everything. He says to Esav, make me matamim, make me foods kasher hafta. There's all kinds of avodas. Matamim is plural. Make me the tasty foods plurally. Yeah, Yitzchak was able to eat all kinds of food. He liked sharp food. He liked sweet food. He liked the avodah of the tzaddik. He liked the avodah of the Baal Tshuva. Everything was valuable, but Rivkah had a certain idea of what has to be the focus, what is the emphasis, what are we doing? How do we accomplish? How do we get to Mashiach? It's not enough that everything is tasteful. More than that, we need to find where do we have to put the emphasis? How do we get the job done? If Yaakov would have been blessed, if Esav would have been blessed by Yitzchak, there was a reason there. Yaakov, again, we learned Yaakov would have gotten the Torah anyways. All these things would have happened. It wasn't like Yaakov wouldn't have gotten the Torah. The Torah had to be given to the Jewish people. But the Yagia Bator, the efforts, the focus, the going in there, that Rivkah understood that it's not just about experiences. That Esav is one way and Yaakov is another way. There's a lot of tasteful dishes on the table. There's a job that has to be done. And the job that has to be done is we have to bring Mashiach. Yaakov's mission going back to Haran was to bring Mashiach. So much so that he thought maybe that when he was 22 years by Lavan, Mashiach was ready to come. But this was Yaakov's mission given over by his mother Rivkah. And then Yitzchak agreed with Rivkah. Rivkah came back to her husband and said, we have to send Yaakov back to Lavan. And Yitzchak says, you got to go to Lavan. Means Yitzchak understood that, again, the Rivkah was onto something in a positive way. So this is really the story of Toldos, is really putting everything together. It's the story of the Jewish people, of that we have a lot going on in us, but we have a lot of things. Number one is we have to understand from Rivkah to get clarity. Clarity means not that you have to fix everything, but at least know that what it is. Like Lama zeh Anochi, confusion without understanding what it is could be very disruptive. But when you understand your weaknesses and your strengths, know what your weaknesses are, know what your strengths are, and be able to build to be positive, work on your weaknesses, enhance your strengths, and mainly to use your tools that have been given to us, each one as an individual, to go do the work that Rivkah and Yitzchak want from us. But Hashem wants from us, to bring Mashiach. And we're not scared to go back to places that are difficult. Yaakov takes that strength, the lessons he has from his parents, especially from his mother Rivkah, and goes back and faces the same places that Avram ran away from, was told to leave from by Hashem. Lech lecha mi'aretzcha, go away, go to Eretz Canaan. He's ready to leave Eretz Canaan, leave Eretz Yisrael, go back to Haran, to the place of anger. It's like, what's Haran? It's not like a power of a place, not a vacation place. It's the place in the world that's the most angry place in the world. What's angry place in the world means? Not just that people are stamping their feet. The world is not, the people aren't happy. People are fighting. There's a rash, there's a balagan, there's a aish, there's charanaf, there's anger, heat. The world is in a turmoil, and you go back there, and over there you have to make seder. Again, how do you do it with clarity? The clarity that she has of knowing our mission, knowing what we have to do. So this is very much connected. That we want to wish everyone that we're going into the month of Kislev, which is the Chodesh HaGeula, the month of redemption, the month of Yutas Kislev. Yutas Kislev is continuing in the mission of Rivkah, sending Yaakov to Haran, continuing with the mission to taking all the things and taking the clarity and going out there and bringing the light to any place in the world that has to bring light. If we want Mashiach to come, we can't just sit in our seats and wait. We have to go out there, do mitzvahs, engage, teach, learn, encourage. One thing we learned very strong is that the idea, the power that that no matter what, you could do a mitzvah. We learned in the Torah this week that a person's out throughout the day of their life. You feel disconnected, do a mitzvah. Do something, call someone, respond to someone. There's a million ways that we could do things that are between Adam l'chaveiro and ben Adam l'makayim. Stop for a second, say to him. Today's a yom, the power of saying to him. So I want to wish everyone Hatzlacha Gedola, Chodesh Tov. It's a month of Geula, big Parsha, big people. We have tremendous tools at our disposal that we personally have. Each one of us, every single person as an individual, has so much opportunity and so many availability and so many tools at our disposal to go out and get the job done. And we go to the Haran, we face the Haran, the angry place in ourselves, the angry place or the house of love and within ourselves. And we have the strength to make the changes, make the restraints. Skafi as hapcha with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. B'mheir b'meinu mamash. Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Chodesh.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi Mindy.
Matthew, still behind the white screen? Not certain. All right, everyone. I'm assuming that there's going to be something going on in the show.
Yeah, of course. Kiddush and
beautiful.
Minyan and everything.
Beautiful. So come join the Minyan in the University District Minyan. Bring a friend so we could have 10 people and a good Chodesh, and we should see each other here in Yerushalayim Kodesh. Laila Tov and good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.